I grew up in Asia, then I moved to the United States for a year, and I am now living in England. And what I have observed is that people's attitudes towards money in these three locations are completely different, which makes me think about all the money lessons that I learned growing up there, which has helped setting me up for success financially. And it's one of those lessons that I don't really hear people teaching their kids about in the West. Now, I'm not saying that any particular part of the world teaches their children better about money, not at all. If anything, I feel like money education is not being taught about at schools or at home. And some of the money lessons that I learned during my time there actually led me into having negative relationship with money, which I'll talk about these in separate video. But in this video, I want to focus on the positive ones, the ones that I find priceless and has helped me maintaining healthy relationship with money. Money is earned and not given. Now, many countries in Asia, in Southeast Asia in particular, the government spends around 2.6% of total GDP on social welfare. But at the same time, the UK is spending 3.2% on just universal credit alone. Now, in case you don't live in the UK, universal credit is payment towards those who are on low income or out of job. This doesn't include other social welfare spending such as housing benefit, child tax credit, or job seekers allowance. But if we include everything all together, the UK is spending a total of 20% of their GDP on social welfare. The United States is also not far behind, with 19% of the total GDP goes to social welfare spending. Now, what does all of this mean? It means that we can't rely on anyone to give us financial help, not even the government, which means that all the money needs to be earned. For many families in Asia, in Southeast Asia in particular, you have to go to work on that day, otherwise there'll be no food at the table during dinner. And if you're sick, you're ill, you're injured, there is not really much help out there. And it is actually a grim picture when you think about it, but with this, it has taught me that I need to be self-reliant, I need to be self-sufficient, and I need to be independent when it comes to money. The difference between wants and needs. Now, if you look at many Asian households, you wouldn't find that many items. Those are just there for aesthetic purposes. A lot of items are bought because they are practical and they serve a very specific purpose. Never once when I was growing up that my parents would buy something like, for example, a dining table because the wood is the same wood as the rest of the furniture, or because the color goes with the color scheme of the room. The dining table that we would buy would be simply because it's sturdy, it's practical, it is cheap, and it does the job. I still remember my time at university quite vividly. It was my first year and everyone was just starting to buy their first laptop because we need them for schoolwork. And this was the time that MacBook was becoming popular. But instead of buying me a brand new laptop, my mom actually bought me a 10 years old laptop, and it was around 2 inches thick. It was so thick that all my classmates referred to it as a chopping board. Actually, let me see if I can find a picture for it. It was definitely this one. But you know what? It did the job. All I needed at the time was a processing machine that I can use Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word to do my thesis and my essays, and it actually gave me what I needed. So that really teaches me about the difference between wants and needs, and it's actually the mindset that helps me a lot now when it comes to making any purchase decisions. If there are items that is a little bit more expensive but has a lot more features, but if those features are the ones that I don't need, I wouldn't pay the price tags for those. Debt is bad. I started to realize how important this money lesson is during my first year in America when I spent my very first Christmas there. People were spending a lot of money buying gifts and presents using the money that they didn't really have paid by credit cards. Now, growing up in Asia, this sort of thing is something that people just wouldn't do. If you don't have cash to buy things, especially unnecessary things like gifts and presents, you just wouldn't buy them. The second time I realized how important this money lesson is when I moved to the UK. I see a lot of people going on holiday and pay for those expenses using credit cards. And it's not because of they want to get points from the use of credit cards, but it's because they don't have enough money saved up for the holiday that they want to go to. Now, if you are a citizen of many countries in Asia, and myself for example, if you want to go to another country, you would need to apply for a visa. visa. And most of the time, one of the criteria to apply for a visa is that you need to have sufficient funds in your actual bank account, which means that you need to prove that you have enough cash saved up before you go on a holiday. Otherwise, they're not going to grant you a visa. And for these reasons, we automatically taught that having cash to do something, to buy something, to go on a holiday is the way to go, and it is good. And that translates to having debt is bad. And of course, as I have experienced more of the world now and have educated myself financially, I have come to understand that not all debt is bad. Some debt can be quite good and some is even necessary. So for example, if you want to start your own business and you are sure that it is going to be profitable, it is going to give you a lot of cash flow, however, you don't have enough capital, it might be a good idea to go to the bank to get business loans if the interest rate is reasonable. However, I do think that it is better to have a default mindset of debt is bad unless used correctly, rather than being in a mindset that it is okay to have debt regardless. It is okay to give. Now, this one I suspect may be controversial, but do hear me out. In many Asian culture, it is the norm that you give some money back to your parents or elderly when you become an adult and when you start making your own living. And although I don't actually agree with this at all, because I do think that you shouldn't be expecting your children to look after you, because who knows how each individual is going to turn out. Your children will also have their own life to live, their own bills to pay, and their own family to look after. However, this ideology or concept, what it teaches me is that it is actually okay to give. A lot of times we are so focused on this money being ours, this money that we need to have, this money that we are struggling already, so we can't give this money away. But I do think that is quite a limiting and negative mindset to have. And what it means really is that you're actually letting money having control over you. You have probably seen before where family members, best friends are fighting over even small amount of money. And I'm not saying in any way that you should be giving away all of your money, you know, your hard-earned money. But I think it's good to be in a mindset that it is okay to give away some of your money to certain people at the time that is needed, and that with hard work, determination, and self-reliance, you can always make back this money plus more. And with that mindset, that means that you're shifting the control. Instead of having money having control over you, you are now having control over the use of money. And I think that's just a much healthier relationship to have. Now, I hope you found this video thought-provoking, helpful, or entertaining perhaps. Do let me know in the comments if you want me to talk about other money lessons that I learned in Asia which resulted in me having a negative relationships with money. I'm out for today and I will see you in the next video. Ciao.